think your biggest obstacle will be this season, and how do you plan on overcoming it?
I think the biggest obstacle in any, particularly basketball, any season, particularly basketball, is the length of the season has a tendency to wear you down. I joke about this with the girls. You know, it seems like there's months that go by at a time without seeing the sun. You get into school, it's dark. By the time you get done practice, it's dark out again. That can just take a toll on you. So one of the things we're trying to do is some of those motivational things that we talked about. We plan on keeping those kinds of things going throughout the season. Revisiting our team goals, even when things seem to get a little monotonous or when the team seems to be down, we just want to keep revisiting that and just keep everybody focused on this is what we're trying to do every single day. It's a little easier to do that in December than it is in the beginning of February, and that's where the owner's responsibility really falls on us as a staff to make sure that, whatever it is that's motivating the team, we got to make sure we find different ways to do that. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier the St. Lopez injury. If the team were to experience a great deal of injuries, do you think the team would still have the ability to succeed?
A great deal of it. Any team's going to struggle with a number of injuries. I think with the work ethic that the girls have shown so far, I think they'll continue to be competitive even despite injury. But obviously, with any team, injuries have potential to really pose a challenge to your season. So one of the things that we just keep talking about is if somebody gets hurt, someone else has to just work that much harder. That's an opportunity for someone else to step up and take advantage and show what they can do.
How do you think your coaching style compares to Williams and Petty?
Not favorably. I think the biggest thing between Coach Williams and myself is he is very reserved. I think he does an excellent job in maintaining his poise. That's one of the things I really look to work on this year, particularly in a game. I tend to be a little bit animated at times. So, and there's good and there's bad with that. Obviously there's a line, but I think oftentimes I try to use that as kind of a way to feed energy into the girls in the court. But at the same time, one of the things that I've kind of realized is if you save some of that energy for times you really need it, they can use it to tap into, as opposed to it's something that's there all the time and almost loses its emphasis. And I think Coach Williams does an outstanding job with that. Coach Petty is similar in a lot of ways to that too.
How much work do you have to do with players' individual skills, or are they already prepared by the time they get?
It's a huge part, something I was, Mr. Shiva and I were talking about the other day from a swim perspective. I don't know if you guys interviewed him or not, but a lot of things that he was saying that he does and practices that individual development, and how much time he puts into that. And then we were having a conversation about how basketball entails not just the individual skill development, but you also have so many team aspects, putting in sets and man sets and zone sets and press breaks and all those things. All those things take time, but none of those are any good if you don't have individual skills to go along with it. So we try to incorporate every day into practice. We try to incorporate, whatever we're doing as a team, plus a lot of individual skill things. And the two things are obviously supposed to build onto each other as much as possible. We might look at film of a game or a scrimmage and say, we really need to work on our post-entry passes, and that would be an individual skill thing for that day, but it also is a part of what we're trying to do on offense. So, a huge part of what we do every single day, trying to develop skills.
What do you plan to do differently this year as opposed to your first year last year?
In games, trying to show a little bit more reserve. We're definitely, one of the other things that has been a focus of this year is we're just trying to maintain positive energy all the time. Not just in the way that I talk to the girls, but even in the way the girls talk to each other. We're trying to make sure that everybody, whether we're winning or losing, that we're always focusing on positives. That we always know whether we're winning or losing what the things are that we need to work on. But sometimes it can be the sense that you focus so much on those things, you lose sight of the things that you're doing well. So that's something that we're really focused as a program, not just myself, but the players too. Really trying to maintain that positive energy all the time.
With the young team, what's the most important skill that you stress in practice?
Turnovers and rebounding is probably the single biggest thing. I've said for years, it's probably the biggest challenge that good players in middle school, coming from middle school, coming up and then playing at the high school level, is rebounding. Understanding team defense as opposed to just individual defense when you're supposed to be, off and help side or up in denial. That's something a lot of girls struggle with, the transition as well. And obviously on the offensive end, it's turnovers. We have to limit turnovers. That's something that we've struggled with since I've been here. We continue to focus on that too. We've got to value possessions on both ends. Value possessions means not turning it over on offense and securing rebounds on defense. Yes.
You guys were a team last year that you accomplished a lot of things. How do you plan on topping those accomplishments from last year?
It's interesting when I look back at last year after the season was done. I think we surpassed what my expectations were at the beginning of the year. But having looked back on it, in retrospect, I thought that we missed a couple of opportunities too. A couple of games stick out in my mind. The game against Millville at home, we had a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter and lost that game. Those are the kind of things that stopped us from reaching a lot of our goals last year. We wanted to make the Cal tournament last year. We came up 2 games short. We wanted to win a playoff game last year. We ended up going on the road to Eastern and lost by 8. So we were close, but we just weren't quite there. So that was something that we tried to set the tone with from day one in practice this year. We can be close all we want to, but it's all having goals is good. But you got to make sure that you do the things that you need to do in order to secure those goals, and not just say, "Well, we almost got there," and rest on it from there. So a lot of the way that we craft our message to the team every day, I think, is something that we're doing a little bit different. We're not just setting goals and then hoping we get there by the end of the year. We're setting goals and making sure that we're doing the things all the time that we need to do in order to make sure we reach those goals.
You mentioned earlier some of the rivals that you have. What's the one game circled on your calendar?
It's so hard. We start, obviously on Friday, we start against Holy Spirit, and that's always a big one. They've won our conference a couple of years in a row now, so, in order for us to accomplish our team goals, that we've got to be able to beat Holy Spirit. Then 48 hours later, we turn around and play at Ocean City, which you guys all know is students here is always a huge game. And we get a chance at Holy Spirit again. Definitely, like I said before, anytime we play Atlantic City, it's a big game. They're one of the teams that we split with them last year. We split with them the past 2 years now. So they're a team that's always competitive with us in our conference. We've got to make sure we take care of our conference opponents in order for us to make that Cal tournament and reach our team goal. So anytime we get together, Spirit, Ocean City, Atlantic City, those are some of our bigger ones.
Time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah.
What players are you expecting the most from this season?
There's so many different ways you can expect things from players. If you're talking about from a leadership perspective, I think some of our guards are really important in that sense, Emily and Shay. From a scoring perspective, I'd probably say some of our forwards, Melanie and Meg, should probably lead us in that sense. So from a defensive perspective, that might be a different set of girls for that too. So, there's so many different ways to go about answering that.
Okay, we'll end with one last question. No?
All right.
Yeah.
Do you think your last year's record will have any formula to what this year will look like?
I mean, obviously, you hope to improve from year to year. It's so hard though. There's so many factors involved in comparing one record to the next. Our team is constructed so much differently than it was last year. B, our competition is constructed so much different from last year, from this year to last year. The group that graduated last year had not an Alex type player in terms of their ability. I think Alex was one of the best players in the area last year, but every team seemed to have a kid that was as important to their team as Alex was to our team. And with that whole crop of graduating seniors moving out, particularly of our conference, but of the Cape Atlantic League as a whole, it just throws everything and there's so many unknowns looking around the league. So obviously, we'd like to improve upon that record from last year. But at the same time, I think it's really difficult to compare.